Greetings. Black at you again in this new day. Doing it the same old way. If you hear what I say, do you hear what I say? All right. So today we've feel like we've got a fresh influx. We've got some fresh material, things that we're familiar with, but we may not have read before, but we certainly thought them, heard them, saw them. Maybe we even smelt them or dealt them. Could be. But we hope you're having a good day today. And we like to keep that thought going forward and that whole process going forward. So let's read our proverb for today, which is a very short one. He who learns teaches. Enough said. He who learns teaches. That's it. That's an Ethiopian proverb. Okay. Now, today I said we were gonna be featuring the group Straight Out Scribes and their poetry for the month of August, and sure enough, we've got right here with us their book, Mudcloth Roots. So we'll be reading from this book today. Let's see what we got for today. Let's see what we got. A hint of recognition. Ethiopians knit their brow. Jamaicans do a double take. Native Americans give a knowing nod. Nigerians often seem certain. South Africans cock the head to one side, squint their eyes and sigh. African Americans look quizzically. Perhaps it's the locks crowning the head, the ankh in the earlobe or around the neck, the red, black, green, and gold bracelets, the Marley t-shirt, the thick lips, gap teeth highlighted by a bright smile, the mudcloth and the jinyame on the outfit, the accents, Jersey mixed with Valley, sprinkled with Puerto Ricano, influenced Spanish, matriarch strong, back straight neck, sure foot that catches the eye and captures the imagination. The double chocolate, caramel coated, cinnamon toasted, burnt custard hues, or a little something extra in the attitude. Don't get it twisted, because I'm not a twisted sister. It's not about a wannabe, because even the stiff, straight preacher one generation before in black robe and white collar, who speaks only North Carolina tinged English and knows a few words in Key Swahili, would be difficult to distinguish from several Nigerian brothers we know. See, we don't suffer from identity confusion. It's an unmistakable resemblance, the true testimony that shows why we can't pinpoint the exact location. Yes, we're clearly related, solidly connected, long lost, separated coast to coast. This ain't no boast, we just here to toast. Born here or across the sea, Africans are just who we be. Yes. V.S. Chochezi. Okay, one of her poems. We start out with her. This is a mother and a daughter team, V.S. Chochezi and her mother, Stajabu. You can see him again right there, live. No, not live, but in living color. In living color. Y'all know that show. In living color. Don't pretend like you didn't watch it. You know you saw it. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead on and we're going to mix that in. Mix that proverb and their poem in with a little John Henry Clark for today. One of our preeminent historians, coming with an essay out of the book entitled Black Fire. We talking about some fire, edited by Imamu Amiri Baraka, who is variously known by the name Leroy Jones, as well as a few other monikers. And then Larry Neal. Okay. An anthology of Afro-American writings, first written in 1968, which was a very great year. Reclaiming the lost African heritage. There is a school of thought supporting the thesis that the people of African descent in the Western world have no African heritage to reclaim. I am not of that school. The image of Africa was deliberately distorted and continues to be distorted by imperialists who need moral justification for their rape, pillage, and destruction of African cultural patterns and ways of life. It was they who said, in spite of voluminous documents in the libraries of Europe proving the contrary, that Africa was a savage and backward land with little history and no golden age. However, many writers and scholars, both black and white, have pointed to a rich and ancient African heritage, which, in my opinion, must be reclaimed. If American Negroes in general and Negro writers in particular are ever to be reconciled with their roots. I'm reading it as it's written here. Let us first note some of those people who have called attention to this inheritance. Then consider a few of the more salient facts of African history and civilization, and finally ask how Negro writers can use this material in their historical and creative writing. A number of white writers, keenly aware of the distorted image of Africa, have expressed amazement at what seems to be the indifference of the black man in the Western world to the glory of his ancient heritage. In the following excerpt from his book, Tom Tom, 1926, John W. Vandercook speaks unsparingly. The civilized Negro must lose his contempt for his heathen brethren in Africa and in the jungles of Melanesia and Suriname. He must learn that the fathers of the race had and still possess blessed secrets, wonderful lores, and great philosophies that rank the jungle Negro's civilization as the equal and in many respects the superior of any way of life that it is to be found anywhere in the world. In his column of August 8th, 1933, Arthur Brisbane, then editor of the New York American, had these reproving words to say about Negro Day at the Century of Progress Expo in Chi-Town. Next Saturday is set apart as Negro Day at the Century of Progress Exposition in Chicago, with athletic sports, including colored Olympic champions, a pageant at Soldiers Field called The Epic of a Race, and 3,000 Negro voices singing spirituals. The committee in charge might have reproduced on Soldiers Field the Great Sphinx that stands on the Egyptian desert. That Sphinx has an Ethiopian face, proving that the Negro race was important far back in the night of time. Many colored women, men and women, would be proud of the fact that one of their race once ruled over Egypt, than would be more proud of the fact that one of their race ruled over Egypt than of any modern spirituals, green pastures, or athletic records. In both the statements of John W. Vandercook and Arthur Brisbane, I detect the note of the condescending teacher. They infer that they are revealing something of which we are totally unaware. Of course, this is not true. There is a tendency among the recent discoverers of African history to think that they were the first explorers on the scene. As far back as 1881, the renowned scholar and benefactor of West Africa, Dr. Edward Wilmot Blyden, speaking on the occasion of his inauguration as president of Liberia College, sounded the note for the organized teaching of the culture and civilization of Africa and decried the fact that the world's image of Africa was not in keeping with Africa's true status in world history. I quote from his address on this occasion: "The people generally are not prepared to understand their own interest in the great work to be done for themselves and their children. We shall be obliged to work for some time to come, not only without the popular sympathy we ought to have, but with utterly inadequate resources. In all English-speaking countries, the mind of the intelligent Negro child revolts against the descriptions of the Negro given in elementary books, geographies, travels, and histories. having embraced or at least assented to these falsehoods about himself, he concludes that his only hope of rising in the scale of respectable manhood is to strive for what is most unlike himself and most alien to his peculiar taste. And whatever his literary attainments or acquired ability, he fancies that he must grind at the mill which is provided for him, putting in material furnished to his hands, bringing no contribution from his own field, and of course, nothing comes out but what is put in. A year after this pronouncement by Dr. Blyden, George W. Williams, first Negro member of the Ohio legislature and founder of African Studies in the United States of America, wrote in 2 volumes his History of the Negro Race in America. The first volume contained 464 pages of text, of which 125 pages were devoted to the African background. The field of research in African history was later widened under the leadership of 3 men, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, beginning with his Atlanta studies, Dr. Moreland in Washington, D.C., and Dr. Carter G. Woodson, founder of the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. The American Negro writer's mission to reclaim his lost African heritage had begun. Now, what year did we say that he came out with that book? Where does it say it at? Nope, didn't give a year. Thought for sure there was a year there. Okay, but it was about as far back as Blyden. It was back in around the 1880s or so. What is this heritage? In the first place, the rich and colorful history, art, and folklore of West Africa, the ancestral home of most American Negroes, presents evidence to prove that Negroes built great nations and cultures long before their first appearance in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. Contrary to a misconception which still prevails, the African was familiar with literature and art for hundreds of years before his contact with the Western world. Before the breaking up of the social and political structure of the West African states of Ghana, Mali, Songhai, Kanem, Bornu, and the Mosi states, and before the internal strife within these nations that made the slave trade possible, the forefathers of the Negroes who eventually became slaves in the Western world, lived in a society where university life was highly regarded and scholars were beheld with great reverence. In the years when Timbuktu was the great intellectual nucleus of the Songhai Empire, African scholars were enjoying a renaissance that was known and respected throughout most of Africa and in parts of Europe. At this period in African history, the University of Sankore was the educational capital of the Western Sudan. In his book, Timbuktu the Mysterious, Felix Dubois gives us the following picture. The scholars of Timbuktu yielded in nothing to the saints and their sojourns in the foreign universities of Fez, Tunis, and Cairo. They astounded the most learned men of Islam by their erudition. That these Negroes were on a level with the Arabian savants is proved by the fact that they were installed as professors in Morocco and Egypt. In contrast to this, we find that the Arabs were not always equal to the requirements of Sankore. Now, we only have a little bit of time left, so we're going to leave off there and pick this back up tomorrow. We'll read the second part of John Henry Clark's essay entitled Reclaiming the Lost African Heritage. Because as Bill Cosby once stated in his movie, his documentary that he did on Black history, he asked the question. Matter of fact, the title is the question. Black history, lost, stolen, or strayed? And that's the question we're bringing up today. Goes right along with the poem that we read today. We got a good one for you tomorrow, already picked out. So we'll be ready to go and keep on with the flow. Right now, this is Doc Ock at noon and 9. I'm signing off. and hopefully the rest of your day will go just fine. Peace out until this evening, because we will be rocking it back here again this evening. At what time? You know what time. We'll be here at 9. Doc Ock at noon and 9. Have a good day.